Welcome to another episode of Going Homesteady. I've been promising you now for a week or two that we were going to get some practical tips along the way, and I mentioned specifically some tips on splitting wood. And today is that day. But before I get to that practical advice, I want to speak for a bit about why even doing the splitting of the wood is practical in itself. And that's why we have as our title for this episode, Heating Twice. Now we have this idea in our culture that since the advent of the, what do you call it, the conveyor belt manufacturing system that Henry Ford came up with, or the Colt company when they were making pistols back in the day, that since we've gotten computerized, that or even the fast food industry, that everything's all about efficiency, and you've got to be as efficient as possible, and the fewest steps, the most useful steps, and as if this was a new idea, as if our fathers didn't have any concept of efficiency. Well, in fact, they did. They didn't necessarily have, well, we know they didn't have all the technology that we did. And we've got another episode coming up. I'm not sure how long, far off it's going to be, but we're going to talk about how we balance the harvesting of technology in exercise or in trying to homestead without becoming slaves to that technology. One of the ways that I think I want to illustrate that is I am really, really grateful, even though I don't like using it, I'm very grateful for the chainsaw. Last night, Lisa and I watched an episode of Little House on the Prairie, which happens from time to time. And on this particular episode, this didn't happen, but I've seen it happen many times on the episode where Pa Ingalls, or maybe some other character, he's got his wood on these cross hatches, and he's got this long saw that he's using to cut these pieces of wood to the proper length, often for the fireplace. Well, I can't imagine how much work that would be just to slice off pieces of wood that are going to fit in your fireplace. By the way, there's the first tip for you. When you cut your wood, cut it so that it's going to fit where you're going to put it. One way to do that is to make sure you measure your fireplace before you start cutting your wood. And then if you measure the bar on your chainsaw, then you'll know how far roughly, let's say your opening of your wood burning stove is 20 inches, your bar is 18 inches, you use your bar to measure where to make your next cut and work around your knots and all of that. But just the advantage of the chainsaw versus the handsaw, I'm definitely a chainsaw guy, even though I don't like it, even though it makes me uncomfortable, even though it makes me nervous. There's not a chance in the world that I'm going to do make logs ready to split by hand. That's just too much. So we get some help in our efficiency with the chainsaw, but we also get the efficiency, again, the title, Heating Twice. When you split wood, you get wood for burning and for heating for you and your family. That's one way that splitting wood helps to warm you. The other way that splitting wood helps to warm you is it warms you while you're doing it. It makes you hot. It makes you sweaty. And nicely, it helps you get in better shape, be in better shape. I like to think of splitting wood as a kind of agrarian aerobics, that you are not just, and let me just say, think about that. How weird is that we, one, go outside or go to a machine, a tanning machine, to get our skin darkened so that we look like someone who's active outside, while we don't have to be someone who's active outside. The reason the tan looks attractive is because it communicates someone who's active outside. In the same way, we create machines, and by the way, I use them all the time. I'm not trying to beat anybody up over this, but it does strike me every now and again, this is really weird. My ancestors, were in much better shape than I am, and they didn't go to the gym. What they did was they lived their lives. what they did was they split wood. They, carried logs from one place to another. They did all sorts of work. And so one of the advantages of doing things like splitting wood is it gives us natural, normal, healthy exercise. And in so doing, warms up our body temperatures and loosens us up and creates appetite and all of these really healthy things that we can lose sight of. Just like we talked about with the food and the going to work and the zeros and the ones, and you go to the grocery store and you beep all the way through. In the same way, when we heat our homes from a machine that we don't understand, that's powered by electricity that we don't understand, and we have to write a check, there's something missing there. And there's some blessing too, having a connection between the work that you're doing and the heat that you're receiving in your house. Again, I'm not saying everybody has to have a wood-burning stove. I'm not saying you've got to have an actual fireplace. I am saying it's a nice thing. It's a pleasant thing. And if you look at it, not so much as a chore, but as an opportunity to interact with how you heat yourself, keep yourself warm, keep your family warm. If you look at it as an opportunity to exercise in a healthy, fruitful way, then it's a great blessing. Now, you may be thinking at this point that I'm trying to delay actually trying this. And I actually thought, should I go ahead and split one before we're filming to make sure that I can? And I decided not to. So I'm going to go ahead and take that chance that I may fail. It's been a long time, and I got to tell you, this is the first one, and it is honestly for show. I mean, yeah, we'll burn this, but I'm not in the middle of my day of spending several hours chopping wood. A couple other wood hints I want to give you while I delay the scary thought of trying this is to think through what kind of wood you're using. One of the things about different kinds of wood is they burn in different ways, and it can also relate to how you prepare them. Softer trees, pine trees, those kinds of less than strong trees have as an advantage that they burn really easily. They have a disadvantage that they, A, don't burn very hot, and B, can be really messy. They're kind of gunky. And so when you burn a lot of pine in your fireplace, you can end up dirtying up your chimney very quickly. Whereas if you use a harder wood, it'll be less easy to get it going, but once it goes, it'll burn hotter and longer, and it'll also be a little bit harder to split. So those are all things you've got to weigh and balance as you're thinking through. And I would add this, most people tend to look for already fallen but not too long fallen wood. You don't want to find wood that's been sitting on the ground for the last 5 years. It's going to be infiltrated with bugs and not have very much strength to it as well. You don't want to have to cut down a fresh, healthy, happy tree if you can avoid it. So you look for trees that have been downed relatively recently. You cut them up in the right sizes. And then what I would typically do is, and there's more warming in this, is move the logs to a place where they're going to end up being split and then stored. By the way, after you split them, I think you can do this not quite as successfully, but you can do it before you split the wood. But remember too, wood is supposed to age. You're not supposed to split it today and put it in the fire tomorrow. Ideally, your wood can age for a year to really get it seasoned well for burning well. It doesn't have to, but that's a nice bonus if you can do that. And so that means, by the way, if you're not caught up, you got to get busy. And that can be your exercise program for months and months and months if you want it to be. So, healthy, right chosen wood, cut the right size, take it apart. Oh, by the way, also this, you've seen this, people do this all the time. This is another element of efficiency. You put the wood you're splitting on top of another log. Well, how does that help your efficiency? One, it keeps you from having to bend over so far. It helps with your back. Secondly, it keeps whatever you're using to split from going into the ground and getting dull and getting soft. Speaking of what you use to split, I don't think, even though I will defend the use of the chainsaw, I don't think using a wood splitter, a gas-powered wood splitter is quite up to agrarian standards in my judgment. So that's off of my plate. But there still leaves two options. You can use something like this. I call this an awl. I'm not sure if that's the right name for it. It's heavy. It's got the kind of sledgehammer on this side and the splitter on this side. It's not that sharp, or a very sharp axe. I've also, in the past, I've had two-sided axes, so you can use one until it gets dull, and then the other side until it gets dull. Who was it? Was it? I think it was Abraham Lincoln. The story's told about Abraham Lincoln when he was still out in the wilds of Illinois, that he was involved in a contest on seeing who could split the most wood. And whatever the time frame was, maybe 2 hours, the first fellow started splitting wood, whereas Abraham Lincoln very slowly, using his stone, was sharpening his blade, and everybody got really concerned he was going to lose, until when he was fully sharpened, he went to work, and it was so much easier that he was able to outlast the fellow who just went to working. So this is part of efficiency. Think it through. All right, you ready? Am I ready? Here we go. Make sure I don't hit that. Another thing, make sure you have your distance right, and when you come through, you want to have both hands at the bottom. So I'm going to go like this and come down like this, and hopefully hit it in the right spot. Here we go. Okay, not great, but not terrible. Sometimes you're not exactly dead center, and so you end up with a little slice off here. Right now. Man, that's how it's supposed to go. And by the way, for me, this is like the funnest thing there is to do of all the agrarian things. There's just something so satisfying when those pieces go flying like that, and what you're using gets stuck in your, whatever you call the thing you set it on. So I'm going to call this a win. I hope you will too. Speaking of your assessment, let me again remind you that, in fact, I should have done this like I'm about to cut the wood and then said this and made you wait a little longer. But thanks for staying with us. Please do go and subscribe if you're not already a subscriber to Going Homesteady. Share this with your friends. Put it on your social media. Put links there. And also like and leave comments. I'd love to know your own experience about splitting wood, curing wood, taking care of wood, using wood for heating. We would love to hear your thoughts on the program in general, on Going Homesteady. So thanks so much for being here for this demonstration. One of these times, maybe when I actually have more done, we can also talk about how to stack wood. That's important too, to help it to cure properly and be ready to use. But for now, we've got this log split and this show finished. So thank you so much. Thank you for being with us, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time.